What is going on, West Virginia Mountaineer hoops fans? This is Couz.
And this is Mountaineer Paul.
We present to you
Hoops from the Hills.
Hey everybody, it's Mountaineer Paul and Couz back here again with you on Hoops from the Hills. We're talking today about the breaking news that came out yesterday. It's not breaking anymore, but it was breaking at the time. West Virginia has decided to move on from associate head coach, assistant basketball coach Larry Harrison. Huggins, he's been Huggins' sidekick, his right-hand man for the last 24 years, was with him at Cincinnati. Has been with him ever since he's been at West Virginia, so they go back a really long time. So this had to be a really tough move for Hugs to make, assuming he made it. Paul, what are your initial thoughts, man?
It's tough. It's I know it was hard for Hugs. I think that was the first thing I thought of was, wow, notoriously Bob Huggins doesn't like to make changes, and so this is obviously something that needed to be done. Surprised it wasn't done in the off season, to be honest with you. I had heard rumblings about that.
Right.
It was not done. So, and that probably just goes back to it's hard to fire your friends, right? And I would imagine that's probably what happened. Hopefully they can retain that friendship, but that's really not for us to worry about. But obviously a lot of players love Coach Harrison, want to make that very clear. But there are also players who did not. And this is a classic example, of my opinion, of he's probably more like Coach Hugs than not, right? So he's a tough love kind of guy, from what I've been told and read.
Right.
And so not every kid is going to respond the same to that. So a guy like Jalen Bridges or Oscar Sheway that may respond badly to that kind of coaching, we're not going to like him, right? And then there's guys like Keedy Johnson and others that have come out and said, and that probably need that tough love. So it's all about balance. And so probably just Hugs letting him go. Maybe there's a little bit too much of that tough love in this day and age in the transfer portal era. You certainly can't have it like you used to. Kids can pack up and leave for anything. So coaches, unfortunately, are not in a position of power. And this is another pretty obvious example of why.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, the speculation is out there about, did Hugs make this decision? Did this go over Hugs' head? And did Ren Baker step in? Because the reason for that is a comment Huggins made on his radio show a couple nights ago. When asked about it, he said, actually, I think it was last night. We're recording this on Friday. He said it on Thursday night, I think, on his radio show. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that I wasn't as involved as people think. Well, that made everybody wonder, okay, he wasn't involved in the decision. But then in his press conference today, just an hour or two before we started recording, he made a statement saying the decision to move on from Larry was made for the benefit and for the betterment of the basketball program, basically. So that made me think maybe he was involved. And we got to remember, after the Oklahoma State game, he made a comment, and a lot of people glossed over this. You and I have talked about it. He said, I've been loyal to too many people sometimes. There again, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I've been loyal to too many people at times. He said, we've got a lot of BSers on the team, and that includes staff. And that made my ears perk up because I'm thinking, hold on a minute. He just called out his staff. And then you mentioned earlier about the scuttlebutt about it maybe happening over the offseason. The earsports.com guys, during their last podcast, even talked about it. There was apparently some rumblings in Morgantown that there might be some staff changes made. And it wasn't made. So, maybe this should have happened, a few months ago. Who knows? But do you think, Paul, in your opinion, do you think this was a Bob Huggins decision, or do you think it went higher than him?
I think it was a Bob Huggins decision. I read some other stuff that I have to get clarification, but I thought I read earlier that he finally admitted that he did have more input earlier. I think Ren Baker probably had to get this ball rolling, and maybe Bob Huggins saw his side of it, after the fact. It's really hard to speculate without having been there. We're only reading, sometimes message boards, sometimes credible sources, and you try to put all this together into some analysis. Sometimes it's difficult in situations like this, but um, I think Coach Hugs had a little more to do with it than maybe he wanted to admit publicly yesterday.
Right, right. Yeah, he doesn't want to throw his friend under the bus. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, they go back 24 years.
Yeah.
Is there really any? And fans are like, well, we need to know. Well, yes, we do, but do we really need to know? Yes, we want to know, but do we really need to know?
Don't need to know.
Uh, and I know we want to know, but I just don't know that it's necessary for us to know. And these
Good
guys go
point.
way back. Their friendship's important, like you mentioned earlier. And my opinion is that it probably was a Huggins decision, but Ren Baker had to obviously had to give his stamp of approval and probably had to go through all the administrative stuff to make it happen.
Right.
But there were rumblings that there had been staff had been going kind of at each other a little bit and arguing with each
Yeah.
other on the sidelines during games. That's not a good look.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
see that, players see that, and kind of makes you wonder: is that one of the reasons they've been struggling?
Yeah.
There have
That's
been
that's exactly what I was thinking.
there have been some disagreements about who needs to go in the game, how long they need to stay in the game, because Larry Harrison and Hugs has made this public for several years now. Larry Harrison has been in charge of the rotations. He determines
Yeah.
what players get subbed in and out of games. And I think there has been some debate going on amongst the coaching staff in the middle of games whether these decisions were right or not, and it's caused some friction. And apparently, Hugs has determined that it's. I guess he feels like it's probably Larry's fault, or at least partially. And I've also heard that Alex Ruoff, who's a GA, has also been put in charge of making more of those decisions, or at least relaying some information to Hugs to make the decision. So, which kind of segues into our next part of the discussion. What do you think the next move will be? This is the one thing I think they should let the public know. Hey, here's what our plan is, and maybe they
Hmm.
will. But what do you think What do you think the move will be, and what do you think the move should be?
Well, what I think it will be, I think they'll probably hire from within. That's what I think. I think that's the kind of this person Hugs is. I think he would rather give that to one of his guys first. Now that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't influence that decision and say, no, we want you to go get a young coach out there that maybe he's on a staff somewhere and he's very highly coveted. We're going to pay him, so that they have a replacement option on board in Mount Morgantown whenever Hugs decides to hang it up. Or they could just do that, But I personally think they're going to hire from within. But I would go outside the program if it were me. There are plenty of great coaches out there, great recruiters. Um, I would go and do research on who is the best assistant in America, or who are the best 10 in America that have relationships in the portal, who are the best at getting good players to come to wherever that is that they are. I don't care what
Yeah,
school it's at. And then you offer them a competitive salary and the possibility of replacing Coach Huggins at a place that has probably the best facilities in America, or definitely top 10 or 15, and a program that's consistently won over the course of however many years. We can say definitely 25 years.
right. Yeah, I think the move will be. I think the initial move will be, and this. I got this idea from the guys at 24/7. They mentioned on their podcast, and I think I agree with it. This will probably be the likely move, the immediate move anyway. They will probably promote Alex Ruoff to a full time assistant coach,
Right.
at least for the rest of the season. And they might promote Josh Eilert or maybe even Ronnie Everhart to associate head coach temporarily on an interim basis. Give Ruoff their spot, so to speak, make him a full time assistant coach, and then decide in the all season what the next move is. Um, what I would like to see happen is something you and I talked about off air, and you kind of alluded to it. Is Huggins? I think Huggins knows he's getting near the end of his career because he's kind of talked about it a little bit. He's 69 years old, I think, or 68, somewhere in there. His career's winding down. I think he should start looking at okay, who should be my, and I think they'll probably give him a say in who replaces him. Maybe they won't. I don't know, but maybe they should start looking at that. Okay, let's go hire the guy like you said, who might be able to step in and replace me. But the only thing about that is though, if you do that, you might be alienating the rest of the guys on your staff. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you telling the other guys on your staff
Well,
you're not worthy or you're not good enough? And do you care about that? You know, this is a grown
uh,
man's business.
yeah.
Do you worry about hurting feelings at this point? But some of the guys out there that you and I have talked about, you got somebody like
Uh-huh.
Darius Nichols, who's now
Mhm.
the head coach at Radford, who's played at West Virginia and has played under Bob Huggins, so he knows. But he's also played under John. He spent most of his career under John Beeline, so he can
Right.
kind of combine the best of those worlds, and he's been able to learn from those guys. Plus, he spent a long time as an assistant at Florida under Mike White, so he's coached under some really good coaches. Uh, who's in So, what are your thoughts on a guy like Darius Nichols?
Love Darius Nichols, but unfortunately, he hasn't won very much at this level now. He's only not even a year and a half into his career, right? So,
Right.
not fair to judge Darius Nichols. And Radford is not what I would consider to be a powerhouse. They've definitely been in the tournament before, but um, not that I'm an expert on Radford history, but I'm just saying,
Mhm.
fit matters. I mean, it's just similar to like how some people feel about Neil Brown. If he were in a different situation in another program, maybe he would be winning his tail off. Same kind of deal with Nichols. Maybe he would show up at West Virginia and win a bunch of games. Not saying he wouldn't. He
Mhm.
understands the culture. He understands what's needed and how people won here in the past. So there are definitely he's worth consideration, no doubt. And I could be talked into it, but based off what he's done at this level, or at least the level below, obviously it's not Big 12.
Mhm.
It gives you time, you get cause to pause. So you think about like, okay, who are some of the better assistants out there? Dwayne Stevens, Michigan State's a guy. Mike Dunlap, Jason Gee at the Cleveland State Vikings is another guy I'd read about. But these are all way outside the box that have no ties to the program. So
Yeah.
um, it's tough. It's a tough choice, because there
Yeah.
are so many in college basketball. There are so many young coaches out there that are worthy of a spot like that, not just on the staff. And West Virginia, especially in basketball, has the resources to almost hire any coach they want. This isn't
Yeah.
like in football where we question whether or not they can get this guy or that guy. I really do believe that West Virginia basketball could get almost anybody they want because of Hugs and
Yeah. Well, he's got the facilities there now. We have
yeah,
arguably the best practice facility in America. Hugs is like you and I were talking. He's a top 10 paid coach in America, so they can afford to pay him. Um, I think the respect he has garnered throughout his career will make people want to go. They may not want to replace him necessarily because of the shoes they have to fill, but he's not going to leave the program in a bad spot. Even if they're not winning a lot of games right now, the foundation of the program is there. If that makes sense. The resources are
yep,
there, facilities are there, everything's there. It's just a matter of getting the right guys and the right mix of guys, right staff. Some other guys we've thrown out: Patrick Beeline, John Beeline's son, played at West Virginia. Um,
right,
he coached at Niagara for a very short amount of time, had to step away. He's now coaching high school ball, but he's been an assistant coach for some time. He's even been an assistant at the NBA level. Obviously, the dream scenario would be to have Joe Mazzulla come back and coach.
right,
I
which would have been
personally,
totally possible before now this
yeah,
year.
I don't see that. I mean, obviously, Mazzulla has not been named permanent coach of the Celtics yet. He's still an interim.
He's
So if
gonna get it,
I think he'll end
in
up
my
getting it.
opinion.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
will. But if he doesn't, is that something he would be interested in? Who knows? I'd say
I don't know.
he's probably going to want the NBA. It seems like a lot of these college coaches now seem to be happy with, in the pros, they don't have to go out recruiting and all that stuff. All they've got to do is
Yeah.
manage their guys and manage their team.
Now, is there a guy on Joe's staff that Joe would recommend
Right.
that
That's true
Hugs would
too.
listen to?
Right.
Um, I wish Joe to research that before this video because sometimes in these videos things just come to you.
Right. Right.
This is
Absolutely.
something I wish we would have researched because
Yeah.
I think this would be a fun little side topic to dive into and talk about some of those
Yeah.
coaches on that staff. But that's something if you're watching this, research after the video yourself, look into the Celtics staff. Maybe there's somebody on there that everybody thinks is a good pickup for the future.
Right. But personally, I mean, I'm not saying I want him to bring in a coach in waiting in the middle of the season. Right now, I think
No.
promoting Ruoff and doing all that was probably the right move because you don't want to upset the apple cart, so to
Yes.
speak. But I think once the season's over, you start looking at this and saying, okay, who do we bring in as the next guy, you know, that Hugs can kind of pass the baton to? Uh, is it Alex Ruoff? But Alex Ruoff has never been a college coach before. He's never recruited. Is it somebody already on the staff like Josh Eilert? I don't think Ronnie Everhart. I think he's too close to the end of his career. I don't think that makes any sense. Matter of fact,
Right.
there's even been some scuttlebutt that he's close to retirement himself. So it's probably not him. But it's interesting to think about. There's
Very.
a lot of guys out there that coach has connections to and with. Uh, that throughout his coaching career, whether it be at other schools, guys he's coached with, guys who have been his assistants, throughout the years. I
I
mean,
was
heck,
just thinking the exact same thing.
Frank Martin. I mean, he just popped into my head.
Right. Or Jared Calhoun.
There's another one. There's a lot of he's coaching at the Division II level right now and seeing some success.
Youngstown State, right? No, he's not Youngstown State anymore, is he?
I think I don't know where he's at. I don't want to speculate, but it's at
You've
one
even
time.
got guys like Mick Cronin.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There's several guys.
at one time he was at Fairmont State, I believe. It's Division
Brad
two level.
Underwood.
Yeah. So I mean, and there's James Long who was on coach's staff. He had really good success coaching at West Virginia Tech. Won some conference championships there at the division. I guess it's Division II level or NAIA level. I'm not sure, but either way, he's been a successful head coach. He coaches the West Virginia League, the West Virginia team in the summer. Right now, he's the COO of a developmental training program, basketball training program down in North Carolina. So,
Wow.
called the Carolina Factory. He's the COO of that. So but he does have experience. He played at West Virginia. He knows the culture. He learned under Hugs. Spent 2 years as his video coordinator there. Plus, he was a GA for a year. So, there's a lot of options here, and maybe we do an entire video on top candidates to replace Harrison. I don't know down the road, but nonetheless, Paul, do you have any final thoughts, man, before we close this thing out?
Um, I personally, I do think this affected some of the team's play. I'll say that. I think
Yeah.
this is something that this is a stain on Hugs' record, in my opinion. Just a small one, but um, the infighting, the stuff. It's just you can't have that during a season. It's not fair to the players. And obviously, something has happened over the last 4 games. Um, the Big 12 has a lot to do with that, but I do think this entire scenario has been playing out behind their closed doors, probably a lot louder than what we realized. So,
Mhm.
not trying to make excuses and say that this team is going to make a huge turnaround, but if this team starts playing a little better or even goes further down, we'll probably know why.
Yeah, and that is a concern because a lot of the current players have come out in support of Harrison, and that makes me, that concerns me a little bit that this could impact their performance going forward. Their emotional state, their mentality, that kind of thing, because we're dealing with human beings here, and things like that can impact us.
Yeah,
Uh, is it better to move on from him, or will it be? I mean, this is a huge risk. To fire a coach like this mid-season is a huge risk because it can affect the mentality of your players and how they play moving forward. Is it a
agree.
positive or negative? We will see, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And is this tied in any way to Coach Huggins' future? There's a lot of speculation about that too, which I don't want to get into right now. But
Right.
there's just so many unanswered questions, man. Some we may never get answers to, and some we might. We might see information leak out a little bit at a time here over the coming days, and we may hear nothing. West Virginia's athletic program has always been known to keep things close to the vest, so it's very possible we hear nothing. But whatever the case may be, obviously, all I want is to see the program succeed. I want to see them win games, and I hope this helps accomplish that. Guys,
Same.
in the meantime, please subscribe to us here at Hoops from the Hills, man. We're trying to grow this thing. We're trying to cover as much West Virginia basketball as possible. We're not able to cover every game, but we try to do as many as we can. So please hit that subscribe button if you want more content. Drop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts on this situation with West Virginia basketball. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you like it, like the video. Please subscribe to my football channel over Couz's Corner if you haven't yet. Subscribe to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. That's Paul's football channel where we cover all things West Virginia, and every now and again we'll touch on some Big 12 stuff. So check us out there. Please check out my website, Couz'sCorner.com. You'll see content from this channel as well as some other channels and some blogs that Paul and I and some others have written as well. So with that being said, guys, we appreciate you tuning into this episode of Hoops from the Hills. We're out.